The Oregon air hung thick and heavy, a blanket of damp pine and forgotten things. It was 2017, a year like any other, yet for the small town of Venus, it would become a year etched in blood and terror. In the heart of the silent woods, Jeff Morrill walked, oblivious to the shadows that danced around him. They waited, three figures born from the darkest corners of nightmare Scarecrow, Dollface, and Pin-Up Girl. Each was a grotesque parody of humanity, their masks concealing faces more sinister than any could imagine. Jeff never saw it coming. An axe, a brutal swing, and his life was extinguished under the uncaring gaze of the silent trees. The forest floor drank his blood, and Venus held its breath, unaware of the evil that had been unleashed. Months later, the wheels of a battered car crunched along the highway, carrying Maya and Ryan towards Portland. 5 years. 5 years of shared dreams and whispered secrets, celebrated with a cross-country road trip. They were young, in love, and blissfully unaware of the lurking dread that awaited them. They stopped in Venus for a bite, a seemingly innocent detour that would soon shatter their reality. The diner was a relic, a place where time seemed to have forgotten its purpose. The locals, their faces etched with suspicion and hidden malice, watched the couple with eyes that held no warmth. A missing person poster, tacked haphazardly to a wall, showed Jeff's face, his smile a stark contrast to the grim atmosphere of the town. It was a ghost whispering a warning, a sign they didn't understand. Their car coughed and died, stranding them in this forgotten corner of the world. Rudy, the town mechanic, a man of few words and unsettling eyes, agreed to fix it by the next morning. Shelley, a waitress with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, offered them a place to stay, a secluded cabin tucked deep within the woods. A haven, they thought. A chance to unwind before they reached Portland. How wrong they were. As twilight bled into night, the cabin settled into an uneasy silence. Maya and Ryan unpacked, the weight of their journey settling on their shoulders. A knock on the door shattered the quiet. A young woman, her eyes wide and frantic, asked for Tamara. The name hung in the air, foreign and unsettling. They dismissed her, chalking it up to the isolation of the area, but a seed of unease had been planted. Ryan, forgetting his inhaler, ventured back into town. He left Maya alone, with the creaking of the old cabin as her only company. The woman returned, her persistence a chilling echo. This time, a shiver of genuine fear ran down Maya's spine. She tried to ignore her, turning to the shower to wash away the growing anxiety. She was oblivious to the eyes that watched her, a silent predator lurking in the shadows. Scarecrow, his grotesque mask a horrifying promise, was there, hidden, waiting. Then, darkness. The power flickered and died, plunging the cabin into an abyss. Maya was alone, enveloped by the suffocating silence. A shuffling, a whisper, and then Dollface emerged from the shadows, her painted smile a grotesque mockery. Maya, fear gripping her like a vise, fled into a closet, praying for the terror to end. Ryan returned, oblivious to the nightmare that had almost consumed his girlfriend. He dismissed the incident, his logic and rationality dismissing the sinister truth, blaming it on marijuana. They looked outside, finding the young woman in the distance, watching. Another seed of fear, sprouting in the couple's minds as Ryan chased her away. Their supposed sanctuary had turned into a stage for horror. The air inside was heavy and foreboding, filled with an unspoken dread. A dead chicken, its throat slit, hung from the ceiling, a gruesome testament to the evil that had taken root. It was a clear and unmistakable message of what was to come. The sound of breaking glass shattered the fragile peace, and the masked figures burst into the cabin, their intentions clear. Maya and Ryan barricaded themselves in the bedroom, a flimsy barrier against the evil that pursued them. The door splintered under the force of Scarecrow's axe, his gaze a cold and empty void as he stared at the terrified couple before retreating. The predator had shown its face, testing its prey. They scrambled, desperate to escape, their motorcycle a beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness. It turned into a smoking wreck, another cruel joke by their pursuers. They fled into the bowels of the old house, the crawl space their refuge, though it was hardly safe. Maya's hand caught a nail in the darkness, a searing pain a cruel reminder of their vulnerability. They found a shed, a brief respite before Pin-Up Girl attacked. Ryan grabbed a shotgun and saved Maya before the horror returned with Scarecrow. Stepping outside, they thought they had found salvation. The footsteps on the porch gave them false hope. Ryan fired, only to find he had killed the property owner, Joe. Another cruel twist in their descent into hell. Their only way out was Joe's car, but it became a metal cage as Scarecrow rammed it repeatedly with his truck. Ryan's leg got trapped, forcing Maya to flee, leaving him to face the horrors alone. He attempted to fight, a brave but futile act, his shots falling short of their target. Scarecrow, the spectre of death, disappeared into the woods. Maya, desperate, hid, her mind reeling, finally finding signal on Joe's cell phone. She called 911, her voice trembling as she reported the nightmare, all while stumbling upon Jeff's decaying corpse, a grim reminder of the horrors that had taken place here. Her attempt at escape ended when Dollface ambushed her, dragging her away into the clutches of their pursuers. Ryan held Pin-Up Girl at gunpoint, his voice cracking with desperate hope, demanding answers. Scarecrow ended his attempt to rescue her, knocking him out as well. They awoke, tied to chairs, facing their captors. The cabin was now a stage for their final act. Their last moments together were filled with bittersweet love. Ryan, in a moment of pure vulnerability, proposed to Maya, and she accepted, tears streaming down her face. This was their final moment. There was no escape. Pin-Up Girl, her voice laced with chilling indifference, plunged a knife into Ryan's stomach. His life ebbed away, his last vision of his beloved as Scarecrow knocked his chair over, leaving him to bleed out. Maya, her voice thick with terror and rage, demanded answers. Why? Why were they doing this? Pin-Up Girl's reply was cold, chilling in its simplicity. Because you're here. Then, the knife plunged into Maya, echoing the end of Ryan's life. She fell, her vision blurring, the darkness creeping in. The sound of distant sirens was a faint promise of rescue, too late for Ryan, and perhaps for her as well. The masked figures vanished into the night, leaving behind a scene of carnage. Maya opened her eyes to the sterile white of a hospital room. She had survived. The ordeal, though a blur of horror, had not claimed her life. She rose, her body weak, her mind screaming in anguish, and then she saw him. Lying in the bed beside her was Scarecrow, his mask gone, revealing a face that was both familiar and utterly terrifying. He was not an idea, not a monster, but a man. He was something far more insidious than a masked killer. He was the evil that had always been there. The story does not end here. This is just the beginning of the horror. The terror they faced was not merely the product of a disturbed mind or a group of twisted individuals. It was a manifestation of the darkness that lay hidden beneath the veneer of reality. The cabin itself seemed to be an extension of the horror. Its walls whispered secrets of past atrocities, the very wood soaking in the echoes of screams and suffering. Every creak, every shadow held a potential menace, each an echo of the evil that lurked within the old house and the woods around it. The masked figures were not just killers, they were symbols of a deeper, more pervasive evil. They were the embodiment of the primal fears that lurk in the subconscious. Scarecrow, the silent executioner, represented the inevitability of death. His axe was a cruel reminder of life's fragility, a tool that would make you question your own mortality. Dollface, with her grotesque smile, was a chilling mockery of innocence. Her mask was a terrifying symbol of the corruption of purity and the distortion of everything we hold dear. Pin-Up Girl, with her seductive charm, was a predator disguised in beauty. She represented the deceitful nature of evil, luring her victims into a false sense of security, only to strike when their guard was down. Together they were a perverse trifecta of horror. The town of Venus was more than just a backdrop for this nightmare. It was a character in itself. Its silence was heavy with secrets, its inhabitants distant and malevolent. The diner, a seemingly harmless pit stop, became a gateway to the abyss. The missing person poster for Jeff Morrill was not just a random detail. It was a grim omen, a premonition of the fate that awaited Maya and Ryan. Even the friendly waitress, Shelley, played a part in their grim tale, her politeness a thin veil hiding a much darker reality. The seemingly kind gestures only led them closer to their doom. The choice of Maya and Ryan wasn't random. They were a symbol of innocence, of hope, of love, all of which were violently shattered. Their 5-year anniversary trip, a celebration of their devotion, became a twisted sacrifice on the altar of evil. The cabin, intended as a sanctuary, transformed into a stage for terror, each room holding its own unique horror. Each was a piece of the puzzle that was their nightmare. Their attempts to escape were not simply acts of survival. They were a desperate struggle against a predetermined fate. The broken-down car, the destroyed motorcycle, Joe's murder, each incident was a calculated move that kept them trapped in the clutches of the horror. They fought with courage, but they were destined to fail. They became more and more trapped in the nightmare. The crawl space was not an escape. It was a descent deeper into the abyss. The shed, a place of temporary safety, turned into a hunting ground, their every step tracked and planned by their pursuers. Ryan's attempt to rescue Maya, a final act of love and sacrifice, was a heartbreaking reminder of the futility of fighting the overwhelming power of evil. He tried, with all of his power, to save her, and in the end, it still wasn't enough. His proposal to Maya, in their final moments together, was not just a declaration of love. It was a defiant act of hope in the face of despair, a testament to the indomitable spirit of the human heart. Maya's acceptance, in the face of imminent death, was an act of surrender to love, a recognition that even in the darkest of moments, the human heart continues to search for light. The final scene in the hospital was not an ending, but a beginning. Maya's survival was not a victory, it was a continuation of the horror. Scarecrow's presence beside her, his mask removed, was a chilling reminder that evil is not just a mask. It is a part of the human condition. It can be your neighbor, it can be your friend, it can even be you. The story was not about escaping, it was about surviving or not. And it was a reminder that evil can be overcome, but it always leaves a scar. The true horror lies not in the violence itself, but in the understanding that this could happen to anyone. It was not about monsters from another world. It was about the monster that can live in each of us. It was a story about how quickly reality could turn into a nightmare, and about the very real monsters that live amongst us. It was a mirror to our very real fears and a reminder that darkness lurks everywhere, waiting for an opportunity to claim its next victim. The silence of the town, the woods and the old cabin still stand and whisper the horrific tale to anyone who dares to listen. The real question was, were they safe? Had evil really been defeated, or was it merely waiting? Waiting for the next time someone enters Venus, unaware that their nightmare has already begun.